Note the thickened patch of skin looking like a swelling over the lateral malleolus of the right foot. It is firm to feel and is freely mobile over the underlying bone. This is a callosity. It is a hyperkeratotic patch of skin which occurs over areas of friction. Friction with the shoes, or as in this case, over the lateral malleolus due to sitting cross legged over the ground. Callosity is painless unless complicated. Note the ulceration over this callosity, which will take a very long time to heal. Very often, a bursa develops under the callosity. If the bursa or the callosity gets infected, then excision is mandatory. When deep vein thrombosis occurs in the femoral and iliac veins, the entire limb from the inguinal ligament down to the foot becomes edematous. This patient has presented with a sudden pain in the left leg and edema since 2 days. Note the edema in the thigh, the calf, and the foot on the left side. The leg is tense, warm, and pale with shiny skin. There is mild tenderness in the calf. Now I palpate along the femoral vessels and there is tenderness over the femoral vein just medial to the femoral artery pulsations. The diagnosis will be confirmed by color Doppler ultrasonography and he will be treated with antithrombotics and anticoagulants with bed rest till the thrombus is stable. This was a painful, pale or white leg due to femoral vein thrombosis and is termed as phlegmasia alba dolens. If the leg is dark or blue with blebs or areas of frank gangrene, that is venous gangrene, then it is called phlegmasia cerulea dolens. Due to variable immune response to Mycobacterium leprae, the clinical picture shows a wide spectrum of manifestations from tuberculoid leprosy at one end, lepromatous leprosy at the other end, and a mixed picture in between. In this patient, note the typical brownish red colored papules on the ears, characteristic of lepromatous leprosy. Similar papules and nodules are seen on the toes and feet with diminished sensations. There is no significant thickening of the peripheral nerves. Now note the hypopigmented anesthetic patch over the forearm and a similar sharply demarcated hypopigmented macule over the back. This is a feature of tuberculoid leprosy. So this is borderline leprosy or multibacillary leprosy. This swelling is over the anatomical position of the parotid gland. When I push it towards the ear, it moves under the earlobe and the earlobe is elevated. This is a confirmatory sign of a parotid swelling. Other swellings like lymph nodes or subcutaneous lipomas or sebaceous cysts will not raise the earlobe like this. The patient has presented with the swelling growing slowly since last 5 years. It is a firm swelling with smooth surface, mobile and lifts the ear lobule. This is a mixed parotid tumor. I will also test for the facial nerve weakness, which is seen if the parotid swelling is malignant. In a swelling located little higher in front of the ear, test for upward movement. A parotid swelling cannot move above the zygomatic arc because the deep fascia is attached to the zygoma and prevents the movement of the parotid above the zygomatic arc. This is called as the curtain sign. Observe the eye carefully. There is a rhythmic oscillatory movement of the eyeball in a vertical direction. This is vertical nystagmus. The quicker component of the movement is downwards. So this will be the direction of the nystagmus. Nystagmus may be congenital and harmless, or it may occur with disorders of vestibular system, that is the semicircular canals. It may also occur with prolonged visual impairment as in minors or central disturbances involving the visual pathways. Nystagmus can also be induced by caloric and rotary tests or physiologically while gazing out of a railway window, that is rail track nystagmus. Absence of nystagmus on irrigating the ear with cold water is one of the tests to diagnose brain death. This elderly lady has presented with a hard swelling in the lateral gluteal region of the right buttock. The skin is firmly stretched over it and shiny. The swelling is well circumscribed, nodular, and freely mobile over the underlying muscle. In some areas, it shows whitish color, and if ulcerated, chalky white material is seen. This is a condition seen in old people, usually females, and is called calcinosis cutis. It occurs due to friction between the skin and deeper structures with local increase in tissue pH causing precipitation of calcium. Similar swellings may be seen due to calcified guinea worms or calcified soft swellings like neurofibroma. This test tube contains CSF or cerebrospinal fluid from a patient of tuberculous meningitis after 24 hours. When I shake the test tube, you will see thin white web-like strands like a spider's web. This is a fibrin web that forms in the CSF on standing undisturbed for a few hours, and it is termed as the cobweb appearance diagnostic of tuberculous meningitis. Note the painless subcutaneous cystic swelling in the sole of left foot of this patient, slowly growing in size since 2 years. It is smooth, cystic, mobile, but adherent to the skin. This is an implantation dermoid. The site is typical, and at operation we can see its smooth white wall and sebaceous contents. Let me remind you that sebaceous cysts do not occur in soles and palms. An implantation dermoid, in contrast to other dermoids, does not contain hair. Due to a minor thorn prick or trauma in the past, epidermis gets buried into the subcutaneous layers, grows and forms a cyst. Now we will see another pathology caused by a thorn prick. A thorn is broken deep inside, and after a week, the patient has come with an abscess away from the site of thorn prick. This is the site of thorn prick, and this is the abscess. So while draining the abscess, we will have to explore the track and find out and remove the retained piece of the thorn. This is a typical case of spina bifida occulta. This girl has come for mild tingling in the legs and feet. Note the soft nevolipoma over the lower thoracic spine. Also, note the skin dimple in the midline, which is due to the inward pull of the membrana reunions, a fibrous band that connects the skin to the spinal theca. During adolescence, as growth occurs and cord lags behind from L3 level to L1, this fibrous band pulls on the theca and the nerve roots, causing backache or neurological deficiencies like tingling, loss of sensations, food drop, or urinary incontinence. So in every case of neurological symptoms in the legs, look for a tuft of hair, nevolipoma, or skin dimple over the thoracolumbar spine in midline. Elephantiasis is an advanced stage of lymphedema of legs, usually due to filariasis, where the leg resembles the elephant's leg, both in size and the skin structure. Note the non-pitting edema of the leg and foot, causing a stout, broad and heavy leg. Note the thickening of the skin with subdermal fibrosis, which produces a thick elephant-like skin which cannot be pinched. This is the buffalo hump in the dorsum of the foot, broadening or squaring of the toes, and prominent folds around the ankle with deep fissures. And now note the formation of papillae and warty growths similar to those seen on elephant's foot. Hence the name elephantiasis of the leg. The edema affects only skin and subcutaneous tissues, as the deep lymphatics are not involved. Filariasis produces superficial lymphangitis and blockage. And filarial lymphedema usually extends only up to the knee proximally. Thigh edema is seen only if the inguinal lymphatics are blocked. Bleeding disorders are basically of two types. Disorders of platelet and vessel walls, where the bleeding occurs into superficial sites like skin, mucous membranes, gums, epistaxis, GI tract, or hematuria. And disorders of coagulation and thrombosis, where the bleeding occurs into muscles, body cavities, and weight bearing joints like knee or hip. This is a girl with a mixed picture. Note the bleeding from the gums and oral mucosa. There is a hematoma under the skin over the right cheek. The right knee is swollen after a trivial trauma which the patient does not even remember, with hemarthrosis. There is a similar swelling of the left elbow. The hemarthrosis is very typical of hemophilia, but hemophilia does not occur in females and it does not produce mucosal bleeding. This is a case of von Willebrand's disease, a deficiency of the plasma glycoprotein which carries factor VIII. It has features common to both types of bleeding disorders and occurs in both sexes. Whenever there is a soft swelling in the midline in lower abdomen arising from the pelvis, first think of a distended bladder. In a female patient, uterus and ovarian cyst would be the common diagnosis provided bladder is empty. This patient has come with history of dribbling micturition. Note that he is comfortably allowing me to palpate the distended bladder, which means that this is a chronic retention. In acute retention, the bladder will be extremely tender. Patient will not allow you to press it like this. This was a middle-aged patient with stricture of urethra as seen on this urethrogram. In chronic retention, it is very important to assess the kidneys by ultrasonography for back pressure changes and hydronephrosis, and by renal function tests like blood urea and serum creatinine. When a child is brought with complaints of watery discharge through a tiny hole in the neck, think of branchial fistula. Note the tiny opening in the skin near the anterior border of left sternomastoid muscle in its lower third. When I gently press above it or squeeze it, a tiny drop of clear, watery or mucoid fluid comes out. In nearly 1/3 cases, it may be bilateral, so examine carefully on the other side also, and here you see another tiny opening. This is a typical branchial fistula. Note again the clear mucoid discharge. Branchial fistula is congenital and is a persistent second branchial cleft. From the opening, a tract goes upwards in the subcutaneous plane. At the upper border of the thyroid cartilage, the tract pierces the deep fascia, passes between external and internal carotid arteries, and opens inside in the pharynx behind the tonsil on the posterior pillar of Fosses. This child has presented with a foreign body, a shirt button which he had inserted in the ear and could not remove it out. On inspection, A whitish colored foreign body is seen in the external auditory canal. For removing a foreign body from the ear, use a thin vectis or scoop. Very gently pass it along the side of the foreign body to beyond it. Now pressing the foreign body against the wall, bring the vectis out. And here comes the broken shirt button. Never try to catch a foreign body with forceps, it will go further in. Pass the vectis beyond it and then manipulate it out. Observe the left eye. It is displaced forwards and is bulging out. This is termed as proptosis of the eye or unilateral exophthalmos. Unilateral proptosis is usually due to retroorbital or orbital tumors. Now I will evert the upper eyelid, which I can do with ease. In exophthalmos due to thyrotoxicosis, eyelid cannot be everted due to the edema and round cell infiltration of the tissues. Next, observe and palpate carefully for pulsations over the eyeball. In ophthalmic artery aneurysm, hemangioma or AV fistula, the eyeball will be pulsatile. Now see this CT scan picture showing a retroorbital tumor pushing the eyeball forwards. It could be a meningeal or nerve cell tumor, lymphoma or bone tumor.